Hello everyone, back with another episode of the Young Eager Writers Show and or podcast, either one. We don't quite know what we're talking about. If you watch the episode where Desi interviewed me, you'll notice that we switched sides, flipped the tables, and now I get to ask her some questions. This is Desiree Brown, the founder and I guess leader.
Ooh,
right? The
I like
founder
that.
and
Leader.
Founder and leader of the Young Eager Writers Association, which she founded, I think, officially back in 2018, but the first conference in 2019. And yeah, she's published a whole bunch of works of poetry and attended UNC Charlotte and got your MFA right there, or
working on
an MFA at Columbia now. I know that, right?
Well, through NYU.
Oh, through NYU.
It's a really weird. Yeah, if you don't mind, I want to talk about it.
Yeah.
My program is I want to say strange. It's fantastic, but most people I try to explain to them, and it sounds confusing. So I'm getting my MFA through NYU. I have a year left, but it's a low residency program, and so what that means is every 6 months. I get to travel to the campus, the NYU campus in Paris, and I stay there for 2 weeks, and I take classes and I write, and then I come home, and then that semester, I work one-on-one with a writer or a poet. I'm there for poetry. So, yeah, it's really strange. I'm, for the first time, I'm not actually officially in classes, but I'm still submitting homework and
learning.
Oh, yeah. And oh my God, I'm so incredibly grateful to be a part of that program.
Yeah, actually, I want to start off talking about that. So this summer, I know you went to Paris, and just with all of that, I know you met a ton of awesome writers, sat in a lot of great lectures. If you just want to overview that experience, or if there's too much to share, if you just want to share like the highlights, I think it'd be awesome to learn about. Really, I mean, NYU is such a great school, what you're going through being part of the MFA program.
Sky, you came here for my interview. Hello, this is the dog. I'm coming, it's gonna come home with me. Hi, Sky, you gonna be in here?
She's making her exit for now. Come on, Sky.
This is my interview. We'll interview you next. I know. Come on, let's go outside. Come on. Let's go. So the program is so fantastic. When you first start out, a lot of the new students use the word overwhelming, which it is, but it's overwhelming in the best way. I get to work with people like Hannah Tinty, Matthew Thomas, which those are fiction writers, Catherine Barnett. I worked with her last semester. She's fantastic. I absolutely love her. I loved working with her. This semester, I'm working with Matt Rohr. He's the chillest, most laid back guy, and he's so knowledgeable. Aishin Hutchinson, I worked with him.
Oh, wow.
It's been fantastic. So basically how the program works is we go up and we switch between, we'll have craft talks where we sit for about an hour and a half and listen to a craft talk on a certain topic. We'll also have workshops. The workshops are about 13 people most of the time, maybe 15, sometimes maybe 10, depending on the semester. And I love those guys to death. I love, there's nothing more inspiring than sitting in a group of other writers that just are bringing new things to the table. I learn so much by reading their work. It's really true. If you guys read, you will become better writers. But what everyone says is you need to read like a writer. And that's what workshops do. I read someone else's poem and I can pick out the things that are really working for it, as well as maybe critique the things that could be changed to benefit it. So every time I go there, I leave completely inspired and ready to write.
That's so awesome. That's the best feeling. I guess really what struck me about that, with the craft talks and learning to analyze writing like a writer, that's super cool. What are your tips to anyone when they're reading a book, poetry, and anything, and how they could analyze it to hopefully better their own writing? The
first thing and the easiest way to start this, and this might hurt some of you if I say it, you have to have a pen and you need to mark in your book. And I know you don't want to. I didn't for the longest time. I'd never marked in my books. They were my little babies. And then eventually, sometime in school, I took a pen and I do this. I put little parentheses around things that I love just to remember. So I just put parentheses around, I love this. Maybe I'll make a little comment about character development. You can even mark things that you would change. There's certain fiction books that I read and I might cut out a sentence, right? It's still there, it still exists, but I can say, okay, maybe if I was editing this, I wouldn't include this, or I would rewrite it, or maybe I would mark a question mark because I don't understand it. And that's nothing to the author. It's just saying what works for me when I write. So that's definitely the first step, I think, to reading critically.
That's so cool. And when you do that, I guess on other people's work, it might be a little bit easier to make critiques because you don't have that emotional attachment to it. Do you have any advice when critiquing your own work? Because I can imagine you could take that same mindset with your own work. How do you go about when you look at your own poems, marking it up and analyzing it in that same way? Is that more difficult, or how do you do it?
Yeah, I probably for anyone, but I mean, very much so for me. It's very difficult. And one of the things that really helps me is I have a separate file on my computer that are lines or sentences that I pull out. So you're not erasing them, because sometimes it's hard, because when you erase it, then it's gone. And you might have really liked that line, but it might not work in your poem. I just take it out and I put it there and I say, this is for later, this is for another poem. And I've developed other poems from that too.
Right. Yeah.
So,
other inspiration.
Yeah.
I love that. Likewise, I've done that with my own books. I've taken out scenes, like I said, deleted scene. I copy and paste everything, like major that I delete. Poem's a little bit different. A line's a big deal, but like a paragraph scene, that's a big deal in a book. So I'll delete it out. And something that you could do is, one, being a poet, you can turn that into a poem, which is awesome. But any tips for prose writers out there, you can turn those chapters into deleted scenes and offer them to fans. To once they've read one of your books, I kind of offer them, hey, want to read this deleted scene for free? Just an idea that a lot of authors do. And I think that's a great way to actually go about making edits without trying to lessen the emotional attachment. I love that.
Yeah. Recently, I wrote a poem about, this might be kind of personal, but I wrote a poem based on my relationship with my father, which there's a lot of conflict there. And for me, that hits home. Like, I wrote it, and it has a special place in my heart that I know it's going to be very difficult to edit. So first draft, I sent it to a friend. I said, this is the poem. This is very close to me. I'm struggling editing this because what do I even take out? Right. So that's great too. I mean, when you have people there, you find someone, you can just say, I need help. Exactly. Yeah. I need help with this piece. What do I do with it? So that's a little how I get over that too.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you've talked a lot about your poetry. You've actually have some published works, some published poetry. And if you don't mind, would you like to talk about how is poetry similar and different? Just everything about it. I think it's so useful.
Yeah. So there's two ways I've published. I published a collection of poems called Roses Are Red. It's all poems I actually wrote before any kind of writing class. So I look back, and for me, it's not anything that I'm trying to advertise, if that makes sense. That's not how I promote myself. However, for me, it's a little bit more of like a time capsule. They're poems that I wrote anywhere from about 12 or 13 to 18. And so these poems is what every day I would sit down and I would write down a new poem. Yeah. And this was before I was really reading much poetry, other than, I liked a lot of Shakespeare sonnets, so I read a lot of those. But so for me, I that was all my goal when I turned 18. I published all of those. But then outside of that, I started studying poetry officially in school. I started to really analyze my own writing, which my writing has completely evolved since then. And it's been great because then what I would do is when you go to these publishing magazines, literary journals, they ask you for about 3 or 5 poems, and I'd polish up some, and I'd have professors once in a while look at them, or friends, writing friends look at them. And so
that's awesome.
Yeah, I've had a few published in magazines. I'm trying to think of some. Hedge Apple magazine was, I think, the first one. I did that through a writing conference, actually. So I went there and I left, then had my poem published in their magazine. So it's great. And if I can give any advice on that, I just want to say, don't be scared to publish your work. Please. So many people don't know how to go about it. And I get that. There's ways to figure it out. And that's why I'm here. I want to speak on that for people, and feel free to contact me. I would love to tell you a little bit about it. But don't be afraid. People think that it's too early to start reaching out and publishing your work, and it's not too early.
Definitely never too early, and definitely you prove that. So I guess with future, you've already been published in magazines. You've already published your own collection of poems. Now, of course, you can keep improving your work, but you've done a lot. What's your goals for the future of your poetry? And even you're getting your MFA at NYU in a pretty awesome program. What do you see for your future outside of you? And when I say you, it's probably me thinking every podcast. When I say you, this time I mean YEW.
Well, one of the things I would love to do is, and which the goal is when I graduate next year, I have to have about 25 pages of, a minimum, 25 pages of poetry. And so that right there is a chapbook. And if I have more than that, then it's a full collection. So I would love to edit those pieces and have a collection done by this upcoming July and publish that.
That'd
And
be
so,
awesome.
yeah, for me, it's just continuing to write stuff. You know,
Yeah.
a poet I really like is Kevin Young, and he wrote the collection Brown Poems. And so that's one of my favorites.
Easy to mix up.
Yeah,
Young
I
and
know,
Brown
I
are both
have to
such common
say
last
it.
names too.
And Brown is my last name.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, and I think he's published 13 collections.
Oh, wow.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, don't quote me on it. I think
Yeah.
it's 13. I was like, wow, I would love to do that. Like, I would
Yeah,
love
yeah.
to publish that many. And just, like you've always been saying, you just got to do it. So,
If you're interested in listening to the full version of this interview, you can find it at youngeagerwriters.org.